Hello, everyone. This is Mike Yeager from Cargas. Just wanted to get started here today. Excuse me. Here's a brief agenda. We just did the introduction. Thank you, Brian. We're going to give you a little overview of who Cargas Systems is. Talk about auditing nightmares. We're using the Halloween theme here. Hopefully you won't be scared too much. And then we're going to introduce our partner, Vertex SMB, and take a look at their sales and use tax solution. And then at the end, we will leave some time for Q&A. And you guys can enter any questions you have via the chat function that Brian recommended at the bottom of your screen. So thanks for attending this afternoon. Just want to get started with a brief overview of Cargas Systems, who we are, and what we're all about. Cargas has been around since 1988. We were a one-person consulting firm founded by Chip Cargas. We focus on business software and the consulting services around business software. Both software that we resell from our partners, such as Microsoft Dynamics GP and Intact, as well as products that we develop, such as the Cargas Energy Solution, where we have a focus on companies that deliver heating oil and propane. We are also a reseller and a partner with Vertex, which we will talk a little bit about here today. We are an employee-owned company. It's probably one of the unique features of our organization. 70% of our employees are owners in the organization, have 72 employees, and we are growing rapidly. We're 10 times the best place to work in Pennsylvania, one of the best places to work in Pennsylvania, which is something we're very, very proud of at Cargas Systems. And I just went the wrong way. So that's a little bit about Cargas, and we'll get into the rest of the presentation here today. So audit nightmares. Whenever somebody hears the word audit, they get a little squeamish, whether that is a personal audit of your financials or the IRS, a business audit. It's something that everybody dreads. And we're going to talk today about sales tax auditing in particular. And so at Cargas Systems, we've gone through a sales tax audit, and the reason we think it was just our time. There is an audit cycle, and certain companies, it's going to happen inevitably if you're in business long enough. It's going to be your time, so it's good if you have your house in order. Also, if you're a larger company, you have a lot of sales volume, your company is growing and changing rapidly, that is another reason that you might be targeted. Other times, it could be your industry. We are a software company, as is Vertex. Right now, there's a lot of changes going on in the software industry about what is taxable, what is not taxable, whether you have Nexus or not in those states, just by selling into those states, or if they download product, is that Nexus? So what we've seen is certain industries are getting targeted, and software companies right now is one of those industries. Nexus. Nexus is something we'll talk a little bit more about. There's definitely complexity surrounding Nexus determinations. You want to keep in mind. You want to make sure you're keeping records of exemption certificates. The other thing that can happen is if your competition is getting audited. So if you're in a particular industry, they might learn and they find that there's a lot of money potentially that people in your industry are not following the rules of Nexus. Then they're like, oh, we got to find who else is in this industry where we can get revenue. The thing is, the reality is right now is that states, since a lot of federal funding has been cut, definitely some budget challenges, states are looking for new revenue sources. And that's a big part of this, of why audits and sales tax audits are becoming more frequent. If you had a late filing, that also could be a reason. So this idea of Nexus, and I would recommend that if you're working with a CPA firm or an advisor in taxes, they are very strong in helping you determine if you have Nexus or not. I know we use our local CPA firm for those types of things, our partner there. But that's your sufficient physical presence. It's determined whether an out-of-state business is liable to collect sales tax, sales or use tax on sales into that state. What you really are saying is, are we liable? And if the customer is the one who should be paying the sales tax or the use tax, but if you're not withholding it or charging your clients sales tax, in these situations, they will come after you and you will have fees. And as we know, that is a nightmare, just waiting to happen. So what are some things that create Nexus? Well, if you have physical presence, like a building in a certain state, a location, very obvious. Even if you have employees that work in that state, usually it's pretty obvious that you have Nexus in that state. The less obvious things are things like independent reps who maybe are selling to customers in that market, using subcontractors or agents in those areas. We're doing installation, training, and maintenance, so we come on site, but only for a brief period of time. If we're doing it over the web, do we have Nexus? You could have leased property in the state. So these are some of the activities that create Nexus. And once again, we are not experts on that. Being a software and consulting firm, we recommend that you work with your local experts or whoever you're partnered with that could help you out with that. CPA firms have SALT, as they call them, SALT teams, state and local tax teams that can help you determining whether you have Nexus. So what can you expect from an audit? You can expect extra work. Here at Cargas, we went through an audit once, I had mentioned. And, you know, it's a lot of work. You got to get ready. You got to prepare. Got to make sure you have copies of your invoices or access to your invoices online. You know, an audit can take a few weeks. It can be as little as a week or two. For mid-sized companies, it could be a 6-month process. I know in bigger organizations that I worked in, we would have tax audits that would go on for a very long time because we were in multiple states. So when should you hire help? Like we talked a little bit about this idea of working with a tax expert. If you've never been through the process, it might be good to have somebody who's been through it multiple times with different customers. Time is an issue. If you really need help just being able to not entertain the auditors, but work with the auditors and get them the information they need. If you already have a lack of staff, there's an aggressive timeline the state is providing you to begin the audit, and you're just not prepared, you may want to look at hiring help in these types of situations. As a software company right now, we are going through, and we sell nationally, of a lot of determining whether we have Nexus, what states we're selling to, and so these are things that, as an organization, we're also preparing for ourselves about that. So once you've been audited, and if you have been, this is when you might want to, or even before you get audited, or you think you are somebody who could be a candidate based on some of the things that we said, that's when you might want to consider doing things better. Is there a better way to change your processes to make sure that you're better prepared for future audits? Or there's the idea of working with a new software product that will help you automate and outsource maybe the preparing of the returns. So some key questions in the audit nightmare. I wanted to do like one of those scary laughs, but you know, Brian told me it would be unprofessional. No, just a couple of things. Trying to know, do you have Nexus? Think about that. Are you preparing your tax returns properly and timely? Do you have the required in-house expertise or should you be looking for help? And, is there software products that are out there that could help you track or automate any of these areas? So I'm about to turn it over to Brad Wildstein from Vertex. Vertex is a software product that can help make the audit nightmare go away. Your nightmares, your sleep now can be restful and peaceful because you have a product like Vertex. And at Cargas, we are a partner of Vertex. We sell their solution to our customers, and we work with them also as a partner. We created the connector to Microsoft Dynamics GP for Vertex, and we think they are the best company to serve this market for tax automation software for sales tax. So we are very excited to be partnered with them. And at this point in time, I am going to turn this over to Brad, and he will take over the rest of the presentation. So Brad, it's all yours.
And you can hear me now. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Perfect. So as Mike started to discuss before, Vertex and Cargas, we've been partners for the better part of 2 years now, very closely tied strategic partners, and we help serve their customers in the sales and use tax arena. For those of you who are not familiar with Vertex, a little bit of background on us. We've been in the transaction tax or sales and use tax business for the better part of the last 40 years. Since 1978, we were founded. We're actually the largest privately held software company in the United States. We're a Pennsylvania-based company. We're headquartered in Berwyn, Pennsylvania. We have over 1,000 employees globally, and we work with some of the largest organizations. 59% of the Fortune 100 companies leverage a Vertex solution today. As you can see, we have over a 95% renewal rate here as well. When we move into Vertex SMB, and a little bit of background on Vertex SMB. So Vertex, as I mentioned, has been in this business for almost 40 years now, has served primarily the enterprise space. Going back over the last couple of years, a lot of what Mike's talking about this morning about audits, about your small and medium-sized business, some of the complexities, sleeping at night, what keeps people up at night, a lot of that is around the transaction tax and sales tax industry. So what we did was we wanted to right-size the enterprise-wide product and bring it into the SMB space. What we did was we took a completely unique approach. We took our calculation engine along with our returns generation. Ultimately, the reason you calculate tax is at the end of the month, you need to file a return with the appropriate state. We married those two systems together in a cloud-based environment. We wrote a new UI in front of those for simplified configuration, easy setup, and we brought them into the SMB space. We handle consumers use tax, we handle exemption certificates, we have rate files, returns only offerings as well. We built all of this with a pay-as-you-go model with no upfront costs. So a very simplified solution, very easy for the SMB customer to get up on board, but you're leveraging that same content that was available to your enterprise-wide clients. And as I just started talking about some of our major market differentiators here, is both calculations and returns in one, as the infographic below shows here. It's pay-as-you-go pricing. If you have 500 invoices in a month, you pay for 500. If you have 1,000, you pay for 1,000. If you have 10, you pay for 10. So as your business scales up and down, so does our pricing, which means there's no upfront cost. There's no CapEx investment. And not only do you get all of this with a month-to-month agreement versus a long-term contract, you also get your signature-ready PDF return included. So at the end of the month, you hit the print button, sign a return, attach a check to it, and away you go. And you can file those returns. If you choose, Vertex SMB will also file those returns on your behalf as well. Okay. So a very exciting announcement today, actually, and for those of you who may have seen this in the press this morning, Vertex SMB, our go-to-market strategy, as Mike just talked about before, is working with partnerships. We have signed an agreement with the CPAcom, which is a AI CPA company, and is a partnership that enables CPA firms to join this program and provide their customers with a higher level of service and the availability to Vertex SMB solutions. By partnering for those accounting firms, their clients get discounted service. They get 3 months of free of the solution. They get enhanced onboarding, a personalized touch and talk. They get a 90-day implementation review. They get additional technical calls, a very high-touch type of solution, and ultimately they get the stamp of approval as well from the CPAcom and the AI CPA and through our partnership. So very exciting to be able to announce this today. This is a partnership that's been in the works for some time now and was officially announced in the marketplace. So excellent timing on our webinar today as we are discussing. So as I've now talked through what our solution is, how we go to market, some of the cool and exciting partnerships we have, the integrations that we currently have that we work with today, as you see up on the screen here, Microsoft Dynamics, CRM, NetSuite, QuickBooks, Magento, the Sage platform, SAP Business by Design, and several more that will be coming down the pipe as well. As you saw on the previous screen, you also have the ability, if you don't have one of these ERP or accounting systems here, you have the ability to connect directly into us, upload a file, and take advantage of our returns only option, or download a rate file. Mark Sikowski from our team is going to take us through and actually show you what the solution looks like and how simple we've really been able to take sales and use tax and make it applicable across the entire marketplace, and along with that, enable you to be able to, as Mike said before, sleep well at night knowing that should an audit come, you have all of your ducks in a row and all of your calculation done correctly. So Mark, at this point, I am going to go ahead and pass the ball to you. And if you guys could also go ahead and unmute Mark, it looks like he is here. So Mark, you should have control now.
Thanks, Brad. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Taking through a quick demonstration of the Vertex SMB Tax Central solution to help with the sales and use tax automation processes that your companies utilize. So I have just logged into, first let me make sure everybody can see my screen. Okay.
We can, Mark.
Okay. So what I've done is I've logged on to Tax Central. And this is a configuration setup for those people with utilizing ERPs such as Microsoft Dynamics Great Plains. This is a one-time setup type of configuration where users can set this up and then be able to process their tax transactions through their GP integration, or can use the product as standalone to help generate PDF-ready signature returns for filing. So I've landed on my dashboard. So this is typically where I come into the product when I first land, and it gives me some general information about the company that I have selected on the screen. So the company that I have set up here is Vertex SMB. I'm looking at the October filing period, which is the current period, so I have no sales tax data associated today with that period. If I look at previous periods, I can bring up some results which give me some overall numbers from a returns generation standpoint, total sales and total tax applied for that filing period. Some state statistic information on the screen, so some analytics showing me the highlighted fields are the states in which I'm registered in to do business. So those are the states that I've determined that I have Nexus, or my certified tax specialist has determined that I have Nexus in. And if I click on a state, that state is then, that information is transferred, so I have total tax in the state of $16,000. Again, some additional comparative analytics gives me the overall gross sales for a tax period or the tax liability for that period as well. So Tax Central, again, it's as simple or as complex as the user needs. So customers can simply come in and configure their company to generate the return. So one of the requirements that we have from a system perspective is to come in and register a location. So in register a location, I can come in, I add my filing entity, basic information, my company code, my federal ID number, the name of the filing entity, and these all match what I'm listing in my ERP. That's important to note because as it lists in your ERP, whether you're filing for Vertex to actually calculate the tax or just generate the PDF-ready returns, this information is needed on the forms that are uploaded into the system. Again, the address of the company that I'm working with, and then I can register for the states in which I do business. So if I use Alabama as an example, I can add a physical location if I have a physical location in Alabama, or if I just have Nexus based on some number of trips into the state or whatever may cause me to have Nexus, I register for that location or for that state. I select the returns that I want to generate, the filing frequency, the method, and then just hit save. At that point, and that point alone, if I have registration in Nexus in just Alabama or a number of states, once I've registered for the returns and for that state, that's the minimum configuration required in order for me to start generating tax within Tax Central. So at the bare minimum, that's the information we need, and customers can then start processing tax on a tangible personal property basis for sales tax reasons. I can also go into the system and configure a greater level of detail for adding a little bit more complexity to the system. I can add products. So if I have specific products that require special taxability, I like to use the example of clothing in New Jersey, which is not taxed. I would have to, in New Jersey, I would map clothing within the Vertex SMB, within Tax Central, in order for it to generate a no tax determination when I pass clothing through the system. So adding is, I can add a single new product. My company sells this product, so I'm using, that's for sales tax purposes. If my company were using it for consumer's use tax purpose, my company would be purchasing this product. So my company is selling this product. My code or class would match the product code or class that's matched within my ERP. I'm going to select this as a product code, and we have determination we can map to a product code, which is a single product, or we can map to a class of products. So we can map a class of products to clothing and pass that product class in through the ERP connector or through an adjustment file and be able to generate the appropriate tax. I can list the product name. And I just list clothing. I can put an end date if necessary. I have a start date, and then I can do a quick search. And these are the predefined Vertex categories for products when we're talking about tax. So I can do general clothing, and again, I can list down to the extended categories. Okay, I can also add a qualifying condition for a state location. If I have a 16-inch monitor that happens to be taxed at a different rate in a jurisdiction, I can list that here from a qualifying condition standpoint. Any questions so far? Okay. I can also return to my configuration overview, and I can add exemptions or exceptions to the sales tax process. So if I have customers who have exemption certificates and I need to manage those customers from an exempt status, I can add a single exception into the system following the information on the screen, setting whether or not the customer is taxable. If they're exempt as a whole organization, I can just select exempt and then select the reason, or I can select taxable and I can put the exemption number, the certificate number, the start and end date, the jurisdiction in which they're exempt, and an exempt reason. I can also tie that exemption to a specific product code or product class. We do also have the ability to store that customer's exemption certificate in our database. I'm going to exit out. We have the ability within Tax Central to offer customers the choice of doing some one-off invoice or creating invoice detail within the product to calculate tax. This gives us the ability here to set a transaction. I will choose and if I type in an address for the ship to, based on the company information that I've placed in the system, quick demonstration of very expensive bandana. I can calculate tax, and as you can see, this is the information that's returned from a sales tax perspective. So this is the same data that's passed through the integration to GP, or again, data that is provided back to the customer through an adjustment file process, which breaks down the tax. This is in California, the county is Alameda, and then looking at the different level of district taxes associated with this particular transaction. So I have the ability now to post this transaction to the Vertex Tax Journal, where we'll be able to generate PDF signature-ready returns for use. I won't post it just from a timing perspective of the demo. We do also offer the ability to look up tax rates. So just doing a general tax lookup rate, if customers need to find out a tax rate for a specific jurisdiction, if they're just trying to see if they have the right information, the ability to manage, the ability to do that same calculation process through an adjustment file. So for those organizations who might not have an ERP that's integrated to Vertex SMB, we do have the ability to take your data from us and populate tax from an adjustment file standpoint. So this is loading data into the Vertex SMB system through an adjustment file and us generating transactional data, which is then populated, quick example here, which is then populated onto a sales and use tax return. We allow this option for invoices. So for those transactions that have not yet generated sales tax, you can upload those from an invoice perspective, from a batch process, or for those items that you've actually already generated sales tax, we can still use that process to manage tax returns. So if I go into the adjustment file for tax returns, in order to generate a tax return, we simply come in and we upload an adjustment file, and we provide the information regarding the invoice transaction, the destination, the ship to and ship from information, and the total tax applied. So the total tax applied, and then what we do is through a distribute tax call within our system is take that information and distribute that tax among the appropriate jurisdictions in order to generate the sales tax return. We have also offered through Tax Central and to our customers a rate file for the states in which they have Nexus. If they choose to manage those tax tables within their ERP or their own, we can generate rate files for all the states, including Canada. And we also offer many reports associated with Tax Central. Two of the most prevalent reports that we offer, one is the taxability report. A taxability report shows me the data in my system from a sales taxability, so products that I have set up and the states and jurisdictions that I have listed here of whether or not that product is taxed or exempt. Another frequently used report is the transaction report. So the transaction report gives visibility to the customers for those transactions that were processed and posted to the Vertex SMB Tax Journal for the ability to generate PDF signature-ready returns. So here, as I look at, these are the returns that I have registered for. So at the end of my filing period, I can generate those returns. Once the returns are generated, I can come back into Tax Central. I can download the return. I can print the return and sign it and mail it into the jurisdictions. Or I can take this information. We can allow Vertex SMB through their premium product offering. We'll file remit on your behalf. Another process that we use. Still a process for a customer to come in and view the returns to make sure that they're accurate for their business. Because we're utilizing the data that's provided to us by your organization. The settings screen gives us the ability to manage my company information. I can invite new users to my organization so that they can utilize the functionality within Tax Central or help me configure. My billing and subscription information, as Brad mentioned earlier on the call, we are a consumption-based model, so you pay for the journal postable transactions to Tax Central. So we like to say invoice transactions, but those are transactions that are invoiced through our process, posted to the journal that enable us to generate PDF signature-ready returns. Okay. A little more information on the My Connectors provides the Trusted ID, which is utilized through the ERP to communicate with the service that Vertex SMB offers, and a location on our screen for customers to come in and download the specific connector related to the specific integration related to their ERP. So that's a very quick overview, run through of Vertex SMB Tax Central. I don't know if there's any questions regarding the offering.
All right, thanks, Mark.
We do. We actually have a question. How do you obtain a trusted ID?
So a trusted ID is obtained through a registration process. So when a user is invited through a VAR or through one of our inside sales team members to join Vertex SMB, they go through a registration process. Once they've completed that registration process, a trusted ID is generated and provided to them.
Okay. And how about what file format is used to upload the sales data?
So the file format that's utilized to do adjustment files is a CSV file. So I can show you an example of the adjustment file here. And not all data elements, one thing to note, not all data elements are required when loading an adjustment file. So through our Help Center, we define exactly what columns are required. And the only requirement we have from an adjustment file standpoint is it's about 8 fields. And while the header names are required, we require the same header names, the header names do not have to be in the same order that's on our template.
Okay. Brian, do you have any other questions at this point in time?
Well, we can see if anyone else. Does anyone else have any questions? If you do, you can use the chat feature there.
So a couple of things as we go back to the audit nightmare here. Thank you, Mark. That was fantastic. Appreciate it. If you are getting audited, this saves you tons of time. Having this kind of organization in your systems, it would save you a lot of time. Also, from my understanding, and I have not experienced this, but when you tell the sales tax auditors, we have software that helps us with this, that really becomes a big part of them thinking, wow, this company, we're not going to find anything here. They're on top of this. They've been thinking about it. They have systems that help them support it. So it really can take away some of that nightmare aspects of the audit. Brian, I don't know if you have anything you want to add to that related to this that your clients have seen.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, when I think of my experience, one of the things when we start to talk about, leveraging a solution like Tax Central through Vertex SMB, when you talk about the audit nightmare and really ensuring that your records are cleaned up, being in the compliance business for the better part of the last 20 years and specifically in the transaction tax and sales tax business for the last 10 years, when you're using a qualified solution, such as Tax Central or Vertex SMB, doesn't mean you're not going to get audited. Auditors are still going to come, but what it does is it provides you with very clean and accurate data. So when that auditor comes in, you're providing them with that information and that data to get them out of your office as quickly as possible and to show them the correct information. And obviously Vertex being who we are and in this industry for so long is that trusted name. that most of your auditors that are out there are very familiar with and very familiar with our reporting as well.
Great. All right. If there are no other questions, we want to thank you for your time today and for joining the webinar, and look forward to some other webinars in the Cargas webinar series.